Alright, Carl, hello, Yahba Shimi Al double honors the apostles of GMS, honors your brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. I just received this, just found this article when I was doing my so-called, weekly routine, daily routine, so to speak, and looking for the information up there. So, and the title in itself, speaks for itself, all right, because a lot of so-called analysts have been saying this for the longest time, and a lot of people have been reporting on this for the longest time. In that, the situation that you got out there in America has got ridiculous right now, man. Okay, I'll just read the title out for you, and I'll explain a few points. It says the numbers don't lie. Okay, so when you think about the American debt clock, and you had this thing with the so-called fiscal cliff and the debt ceiling and all of that a few years back, and that's been pretty much swept underneath the rug because they don't really want to stir up some panic, because you have to see it from the elite's point of view, man. Okay, this cataclysmic economic collapse that you're gonna get by way of these by way of what they set up there in America, it's gonna be useful to them, man. Okay, all of these people that are on these so-called government schemes. Okay, these people, these peons that are on, they got a couple of grand saved up in the bank and all of that, they're gonna become completely, all right, subjected to what the government gives them out as a means of surviving, man. Which is useful if you're trying to push forward for an RFID chip and you're trying to implement it in everybody. If you're trying to, seize, private property and turn it to government assets, a collapse on that scale is actually quite useful, man. So the scripture says we're not ignorant to Satan's devices. Well, this is one of Satan's devices, man. This is one of the things that he's gonna use as a means of as trapping pretty much all of you people that are bound to this system. Now, see, the only people that are not bound to this so-called economic system is the men of the Lord, man, because we trust in Yahweh Shimi Al. Okay, so when this chip comes out, we ain't gonna be persuaded to be. We ain't gonna be swayed to get the chips so we can get some food. The scripture says the men of the Lord is gonna eat, man. All right. It says the numbers don't lie. We've reached the point of no return on our national debt. It says meaning the collapse is imminent. Okay. It doesn't say it's coming soon. It says imminent, man. So this thing could pop off at any point, man. That's what the word imminent means. All right. It says President Obama and many in Congress have taken recent unemployment numbers and twisted them into something positive. It says meaning that the unemployment figures that have fallen over the past 2 to 3 years, the economy has drastically improved. So the figures that they got out of them, and he's going to explain why those figures have been really twisted. Okay, the figures that they got out of them is basically alluding to an improving economy. But see, he's going to tell you that whoever wrote this is going to tell you that that's actually not the case. He says it's a lie of epic proportion, and I've been saying that for the longest, man. Okay, it is a lie of epic proportion, because what these dudes do, they get a government scheme, right? And they let all these so-called employers start issuing out so-called zero-hour contract jobs. That's why you got people out there that living on the poverty line and they got 3, 4, 5 jobs. All right, because they might get a couple of hours over there in one job, and another couple of hours over there in another job. And when you do the unemployment rates at the end of the year, it seems like you're doing a lot better, man, than you really are. But see, you're not doing a lot better than you are, because people are even struggling more. Okay. It says the real reason why unemployment is dropping is because record numbers of Americans are either discouraged with trying to find a decent job, and that's the point I just mentioned a second ago. All right, but even more elaborated, or have landed on the government dole, which is even more detrimental, because the government dole is going to be pulled from under the government. Ain't going to be no government after this economic collapse comes into play, man. Okay. You ain't gonna have it to where you're gonna go out there and you can get your food stamps, or you can get your IBT card. I'm not from the States, okay, but them different government programs is gonna be cut at the same time as the economic collapse, man. Okay, you see you're gonna have it to where the government is gonna be borrowing more so they can save you out of that drastic dramatic fall of the dollar. But see, this time the only solution they're gonna come up with is gonna be that so-called paperless paperless society, man, where with chip is the epicenter of that. Okay, it says the point is the unemployment rate is artificially low because record number of Americans are no longer in the workforce. It says, and yet at the same time, Congress and Obama's administration are collecting a record amount of taxes, meaning more money is coming out of the economy so that there is less in the private hands to invest in and expand businesses, all right, and thus create jobs. And it says, despite record tax holes, the government is still spending more than it takes in. All right, it says which has led to an explosion in national debt. Okay, and that's exponential because that's going to be an exponential increase because every time you pay your taxes or whatever at the end of the month, I don't know how the system works out there in the States in terms of taxes. They're basically spending more than they're taking in terms of taxes, which goes to show you the system is all BS, man. Okay, if you go out there into you go back in history around about the 400s and so on and so forth, they were actually taking in. The king was actually taking in about I think it's about a quarter. So if they're taking 20% right now, the king was probably taking 5% taxes. All right, which is about a quarter in comparison to what they're taking in right now, man. And what the king, because the king was basically the government back in them times. What the king would do is use the money that he's collected, all right, and not borrow money to. I mean, you have instances where they did so, but in most cases you will spend what you've got, which goes to show you that this whole system was set up to default, man, because they're spending more than they actually got, man, right? Which is called debitable spending, all right. And it says, in fact, Obama holds the record of collecting the most taxes in the debt and for debt expansion as well, nearly doubling it since he's been in office. All right, and it says, so while and that could once the average Joe Edomite sees things like that, that's gonna spark off even more racial tensions with this whole Black Lives Matter movement as well, man. Okay, they're gonna see this and them Edomites, they just want change. I mean, you got some Jakes and Smiths, but they just want change, man. They're sick and tired of you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, and they've used this individual by the name of this Hamite by the name of Barack Obama as a means to get that hate even more thorough against you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, man. Because as far as they're concerned, you not Obama, you are the ones that are doubling this debt expansion. All right. So it says, while Obama and Congress have been taking more money out of the economy, they've been piling up debt. It says, which is a financial double whammy. All right. Excuse me. It says, whatever motivation our election leaders have regarding the economic disaster that they have created, the fact is we've really reached the point of no return. As big as our country is, and it could be even bigger if our regulations happy president would stop smothering it with massive compliance costs, it's still not big enough to pay off what we owe. All right. So if you think about an individual that's taking out a certain amount of money, all right, you can only expect that, you can only expect certain amount of payments before you have to announce a bankruptcy, man. All right. It says we simply do not generate enough national wealth each year. In fact, our national debt, around 20 trillion, is higher than the annual GDP, which is 17 trillion. Okay, so to put those numbers into perspective, okay, if you've got and excuse me if I get my information incorrect on this one, GDP, fries my brain because I believe it's like an economic measuring stick that doesn't really measure anything, but nevertheless, I believe that the 17 trillion GDP reflects how much money is made overall in the whole of the economy without any deductions made to it. So you're not spending nothing on food or anything like that. You're not surviving purely what everybody makes. All right, they're saying that 17 trillion that's made in a year, okay, doesn't match that 20 trillion deficit. Okay, which is to say a lot. So you couldn't pay that off, man. There's no way of paying that off. Okay, it says yes, and yet Congress and this president continue to spend money, right? We don't have, and we will never have, because the whole aim of doing so, okay. See, you got, the people that write this, they're looking for some kind of way out. But see, you can't change what's going to happen out there in the future, man. The fact of the matter is that economic collapse that's imminent. Well, that's been designed to happen, okay. That's been designed to happen. You got these elite banking families to give these people these subprime loans, on whether it's auto loans or mortgages, or basically to have a credit system that's designed to influence really bad financial decisions and all of that, by having this interest rate so low. Okay, they basically designed the system to where people was going to borrow themselves into bankruptcy. Namely, the government was going to borrow itself into bankruptcy, and ultimately that was going to lead forth to an economic chaos that's going to desire a solution that can only be applied by the chip, man. Which, hey, I ain't got nothing against that, man. I say bring on the chip, okay? Because when that chip comes, the RFID chip, okay, when it's fully implemented, well, we know that our law is going to be pretty much here pretty soon, man. After that, okay, not too long after that, man. Maybe the next day after that. Okay, and it says, and what follows are nightmarish scenarios of abject poverty, deprivation, and global chaos. Okay, and global chaos. All right, it says, and a broke United States means that the world loses its cash cow. All right, it says when, and that reminds me of the book of Revelations, the 18th chapter. All right. But we know that ultimately that's going to happen by way of those ICBMs coming from them countries like Russia and Iran and so on and so forth. It says, and when the U.S. consumers don't have the money to spend because they don't have jobs, there is no global economy. So there's no economy anymore. All right. Anyway, okay. So like I was saying, that's all been done by design. Okay, because once that dollar crashes, then it's like the whole world economy crashes, man. So it's not just going to be the so-called United States is going to be looking for a solution out of that. It's going to be everybody out there is going to be looking for a solution out of that, man. And it says when the bottom falls out, it's where did I get up to? It says when the U.S. consumers don't have money to spend, they don't have because they don't have jobs. There is no global economy. There's no economy. There's no economy anyway. It says when the bottom falls out, when the bottom falls out is anyone's guess, rather more. It says, but just looking at the numbers, the future doesn't look too bright. Okay, it doesn't look bright. Isn't so lucky. It says the future does not look bright because it says the government cannot continue to spend hundreds of billions of dollars per year, hundreds of billions more per year than it takes in, piling up debt upon debt without a day of reckoning at some point, because you got individuals out there that, namely the guys in IUIC, ISUPK, and they their whole mindset is that this society is going to continue. They're putting off the day of the Lord. Okay, but if you're seeing that there's a point of reckoning, and you can't just, if you have an individual or a business or corporation, you just can't carry on borrowing and borrowing and borrowing your way into debt, man. Okay, the day of reckoning is going to happen at some point, and we believe that sooner rather than later, man. It says, and given the trends, rising taxes and rising debt, the crash is on its way. Okay, so pretty much with that, I'm gonna say all praise unto Yahweh, Shimi Al Shai, double honesty, apostle GMS, honest you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. Shalom.